You don't want to pay a lot for daycare by pirates. The teenage fish. Your order, please, shampoo. Available now at beauty salons everywhere.
There's something weird in the fridge today.
And that's why they called him Billy the Chicken.
What a great story. I was riveted.
Hey, what do you say we all sing a little song?
Not easy being the one in charge of the apartment, is it, Haberdasher?
What do you mean?
I've been there before. That power of incredible apathy is kind of a mixed bag, isn't it? On the one hand, it is very effective at keeping your enemies from rising up against you. On the other hand, it just makes everything boring as hell.
Whatever. I don't have to do anything. I just have to keep you all from doing anything.
Sure. You don't need to do anything. But admit it, Haberdasher. Breaking into the apartment and doing a biased commentary, it was kind of fun, wasn't it? Imposing yourself on the channel? Don't you kind of miss it? And now you are the channel, and what are you doing with it? What we need right now is some nostalgia. A trip down memory lane. Days? Remember this old chestnut from our childhood?
Oh, yeah. I used to watch this all the time as a kid.
That explains a lot.
What do you mean?
What do I mean indeed? Let's talk about it. Deus, you in?
Of course. Fine. So let's talk about Shelley Duvall. Perhaps best known for her role in The Shining, Duvall decided in the late 80s that she wanted to produce children's entertainment. Because if you played the wife of a murderous Jack Nicholson in a Stanley Kubrick adaptation of a Stephen King novel, wouldn't you? She's perhaps best known for creating a series of 26-hour-long fairy tale adaptations called Fairy Tale Theater, where she told different fairy tales like The Frog Prince, Cinderella, and Snow White, using a cast of popular and up-and-coming celebrities. She used a similar format throughout the 80s and 90s to tell a number of different stories. And then around 1988, she decided to try her hand at nursery rhymes. And thus we have this weird little made-for-TV movie known as Mother Goose Rockin' Rhyme. Much like Fairy Tale Theater, this movie featured an all-star cast and took something that was essentially abstract and gave it a context. And as the title might also suggest, the story revolved for some reason around rock and roll. The movie was released on VHS in 1988 and then re-released on TV in 1990 with a number of edits. Now, I watched this later edited version as a kid, but for today's review, we're going to take a look at the original VHS version. The uncut version, if you will. So, let's dive into the bargain bin of my childhood and take a look at Mother Goose Rockin' Rhyme. So the movie wastes no time with title or credit sequences and jumps right into the story.
That's better.
And that, I'm sorry to say, is our main protagonist, Gordon Goose, an uptight little spaz of a 20-something who also happens to be the son of the famous Mother Goose. Gordon Goose is played by Dan Gilroy, and if you're not familiar with that name, you're not alone. Gilroy was the lead singer in a band called Breakfast Club, which released a handful of singles and a whopping one album in the 80s. Evidently, they were fairly popular around the time this movie was made, but they were popular in the same way planking was popular, with the result being that you ended up with an all-star cast featuring a bunch of big names like Gene Stapleton, Ben Vereen, Terry Garr, and the poor man's David Spade. I honestly don't know if he was any good as a musician or not, but watching this, it becomes abundantly clear that he's not an actor. So Gordon lives in a home designed by an off-brand Pee Wee Herman with his mother, Mother Goose, played by Gene Stapleton. She spends her days, as you might expect, sitting around her house and coming up with nursery rhymes, like this one.
Wee Willie Winky ran through the town, upstairs, downstairs, in his nightgown, tapping at the window, crying at the lock, "Are the babes in their beds? For it's now 10 o'clock!
Yes, apparently whenever Mother Goose successfully writes a nursery rhyme, that rhyme becomes a living creature known as a rhymey. Why Wee Willie Winky looks like the love child of an Oompa Loompa and Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy is beyond me, but maybe the idea is that he frightens children into their beds at night. I mean, the idea of a little man running around pounding on windows and screaming at 10 o'clock at night is scary enough for me, but whatever. So the setting for our story is a place called Rhineland, which is entirely populated with these rhymies that Mother Goose has created. Which, wouldn't that technically make her... But then if she's God, then that would make Gordon... No. Anyway, Gordon Christ, our Lord and Savior, doesn't like living in Rhineland surrounded by all these strange beings.
Can we live in a real neighborhood like Beaver Cleaver or Ozzie and Harriet? You know, normal. I'm normal, and I think it's the only way to be.
Okay, so to be clear, normal in this instance means wearing jeans, a white button-down, and a black baseball cap, and looking as though you constantly don't know what to do with any of your limbs. I think we can all thank Mother Goose Almighty that being normal is not the only way to be. Actually, Gordon's sort of weird prejudice towards the Rhymies is, I think, what the ultimate message of this movie was supposed to be. The whole idea of there being no such thing as normal, and it's okay to be a little bit weird and whatever. But while that's a good message, especially for kids, it kind of gets bogged down by other aspects of the movie. Minor things, like the fact that Gordon is not in any way likable. So our holy lord Mother Goose finally gets her son out of the house and...
Hop to it. Don't be ready. Hop to it. Never make it to bed. Hop to it. Don't be ready. Hop.
Why me?
Why you? Don't be ready. Hop to it. Never make it to bed. Hop to it. Don't be ready. Hop. Take it all the way. There'll never be a better time. Or more suitable place.
Okay, I take back pretty much everything I just said about Gordon because if I had to go through this shit every morning on my way to work, I'd want to move too. I mean, look at him. He's clearly familiar with this dance routine. This is literally how the mail, paper, and milk are delivered every morning. Is something forcing him to do this dance with them? And how exactly does this relate to nursery rhymes? Is there a nursery rhyme about an obnoxious dance crew? And now it's time for Creepy and Obnoxious, the lost nursery rhymes of Mother Goose. With a creepy and obnoxious person.
Alright, boys and girls, just settle down. Settle down. Just settle down. Right, now, you know how when you go out your door every morning and there's this weird dance party out in your front lawn? This little rhyme is about that. A milkman and a mailman, a paper boy and cop. They come to your house and start to dance, and to it you must hop. You cannot stop this madness. Watch every step and flip. Start each and every morning with an extended acid trip.
So Gordon heads off to work when he's interrupted by none other than Little Bo Peep, played by Shelley Duvall herself, dressed like she just fell out of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. The Tim Burton version. Bo Peep, of course, is looking for her eternally lost sheep.
Oh, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to Mother Goose.
Well, she's not here. She's at home.
She is not?
Yes, she is. I just left her there.
Well, her pet goose Honka was there, but she wasn't.
So Gordon decides he'd better investigate his holy mother's disappearance.
Hey, watch the trash cans!
Oh, yeah, for some reason Bo Peep drives her car backwards. Not really sure why. Maybe because she looks after sheep, so she's sort of a backwards person? I don't know, but it's a running bit through the whole movie. Whatever, she crashes into things, it's funny. So sure enough, Mother Goose is no longer at the house.
Don't tell Honka to shut up.
Okay, then you shut up.
Maybe she's with my sheep.
Maybe she's with my sheep.
You know, you have the stupidest little voice.
Oh, good goose, these two are going to end up together, aren't they? So they go off to look for Mother Goose and come across the Itsy Bitsy Spider, played by Ben Vereen breathing helium. The Itsy Bitsy Spider does his thing with the water spout, which he kind of seems compelled to do based on his rhyme. This will become something of a theme throughout the movie, though at the moment this plot point is overshadowed by Itsy Bitsy's truly obnoxious little voice.
You know, I eat like a stink bug of flies, insects, anything I can get my web on, but I can't seem to gain a milligram.
So based on the fact that Itsy knows everything, sure, okay, they ask him if he knows where Mother Goose is.
I just happened to be looking in Mama Goose's window when out of the sky came these great, big, huge...
But he's interrupted by another rainstorm and his need to do his water spout thing, and this time he doesn't climb back out.
He's probably gone to scare the bejeebers out of Little Miss Muffet. It's part of his duties.
How very convenient. So now they're off to find Little Miss Muffet in the hopes of finding Itsy so he can finish his sentence and we can find out what the great big huge thing was that took Mother Goose. Nothing like dragging the plot out as long as possible. But it doesn't take Gordon and Bo Peep much time to get lost.
Well, maybe we should ask somebody for directions.
Well, who could we possibly ask out here in the middle of nowhere?
Gee, maybe if you weren't driving backwards, you wouldn't have ended up in the middle of nowhere. Now would you have ended up middle of... Don't drive backwards! Actually, the idea of the middle of nowhere being a literal place is something I ended up using in a series of stories I wrote in junior high, and it's definitely the sort of thing I do in other stories as well. A lot of this movie blurs the line between the literal and the figurative, something I very much enjoy and often do in my own writing. But back to the story. Someone does in fact come along to offer them directions. ZZ Top, the three men in a chrome-covered floating tub, which is just so 80s it almost hurts.
You know, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker.
Like dropouts from barber college to me.
So ZZ Top point in the direction of Miss Muffet's house, and Gordon, not unjustly at this point, says he's going to drive from now on. And you'd think that that would be an improvement from Bo Peep's backwards driving.
Turn left! You missed it, it's back there. No, turn right here.
This is a wild goose chase. You sure you know where you're going?
Dude, you're going like 5 miles per hour. Calm the hell down. So Gordon gets them lost once again, and we get to see a couple more rhymies, like Mary Quite Contrary, who lives in an upside-down house and disagrees with everything everyone says, and Mother Hubbard, who runs a drive-thru in spite of not having any food whatsoever. Okay? Neither of these scenes are terribly interesting or funny, and they were actually cut from the TV version, and it's easy to see why. Also, if it's a part of your nursery rhyme that you have no food in the house, why on earth would you open a drive-thru? Did the dog just eat Mother Hubbard? That's kind of dark. Next we meet the other Mary, the one with the little lamb, who's, well, not really so little anymore.
So, Mary, I see you've still got your cute little, lamb.
Yeah, he's still here.
By the way, that's Cyndi Lauper as Mary and Woody Harrelson practicing for his Haymitch audition as the lamb. And I actually do find this scene kind of funny, basically because her nursery rhyme defined Mary as a little girl who's constantly followed around by a lamb. She is, to this day, constantly followed around by her lamb, who is, of course, no longer a lamb.
Sure, he used to be a cute little lamb, and it was fun having him follow me everywhere I went. Until he turned into a gigantic, obnoxious, meddling sheep.
And I should probably clarify that adult me finds this funny. Child me found it funny in a different way, but dear Mother Goose, there are a lot of sexual innuendos in this scene.
I lost 2 wonderful husbands, all because of Lou's insistence on following me everywhere. If you know what I mean.
So I'm friendly, is that a crime? Speaking of friendly, Peep, how are those cute little sheep of yours?
So Gordon and Peep come to the conclusion that this whole thing is making them very uncomfortable and decide to leave. But Gordon finds a note on the dashboard of the car.
If you ever want to see your mother again, then bring about 400, no, make that 650 Rhineland dollars and 2 chili dogs to the Pickled Pepper Patch.
What does it mean?
Which part was unclear to you, honey? So they go to the Pepper Patch to find Peter Piper, and dude! He was totally just looking up Bo Peep's skirt. What the hell, Gordon? Her name's not an invitation.
Don't worry about me. I can handle anything.
You're an asshole. So he finally runs into Peter Piper, or rather, Peter Piper runs into him, And after a brief scuffle that would make 8th grade boys proud, he introduces himself.
I am Peter Piper, proud proprietor of this profitable pickle pepper patch. You know, I'm Gordon Goose. Well, grand, I greet you, Gordon.
I have to say, I do like the fact that Peter Piper speaks entirely in alliteration. Peter Piper is the only tongue twister in this batch of nursery rhymes, so it actually makes a strange kind of sense. Also, the lines are well written, and Harry Anderson does a good job of delivering the lines, too.
Kidnap? Quit kidding. Could you clarify the query? Pshaw, that's probably a pathetic prank perpetrated by some puny person out to poo-poo Peter Piper. Leaping lizards, this letter is almost illegible.
But all alliteration aside, Peter claims that he did not, in fact, kidnap Mother Goose, and that he was set up due to his nursery rhyme being difficult to say and therefore unpopular.
My rhyme, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, is particularly puzzling. People can't pronounce it properly, so they presume that I'm peculiar, and they purposely persecute poor Peter Piper until I'm practically prepared to puke. The only crook who could craft such a crude communique is that old crackpot, the Crooked Man.
Who walked a crooked mile?
Correct.
So we're off to find another nursery rhyme, having at this point pretty much completely abandoned anything resembling plot. The Crooked Man is crooked in both the literal and figurative sense, of course, and as Gordon and Peep corner him, he... gets drunk and causes an earthquake? What the hell is he doing? Wow, this is a dull sequence. I think the music is the main problem. It sounds more like something you'd hear at the mall as opposed to the sort of music you'd hear over a chase scene. So, to make another dull sequence slightly less dull, the Crooked Man doesn't have Mother Goose either. He just wrote the ransom note in the hopes that they would give him the money anyway? I don't know, but it basically means that this detour we've taken was completely pointless and a huge waste of everyone's time. And as a result, Peep's car is now overheating.
We need some water.
Great. There's Jack and Jill.
So now it's Jack and Jill, a bickering couple played by Gary Shandling and Terry Garr, who, just like Mary and her lamb, are compelled to continually act out their nursery rhyme of falling down the hill every time they try to perform the simple act of getting water. So wait, so far we have seen a woman who keeps losing her sheep, another woman who is constantly followed by her sheep, a man who is hated for speaking entirely in alliteration, and now a couple who keeps constantly falling down this hill. I would think that Rhineland would be a thoroughly miserable place to live. And yet, in just the previous scene, we heard Bo Peep say...
Is this heaven on earth or what?
No! Well, unless you're referring to the fact that your god lives among you, in which case, yes, it is like that. All hail the mighty Goose. So Jack and Jill... The best way that I could think of to describe them is... they're that couple.
Well, yes, even though we are a couple, we both have individual needs, and I feel that my needs are really not being met.
Well, Jill, I respect your need for needs, but I too have needs.
So they're amazingly incapable of getting a pail of water, and thus Gordon and Peep have to do it themselves. With so much sexual tension between them, it's almost painful.
I don't want to start a relationship.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know either.
Well, good. At least we understand one another.
Oh, good Goose, just make out already. So, just to serve as a little reminder that the last 10 minutes of the movie have been entirely pointless, we see Gordon and Peep literally driving around in circles and winding up back in the middle of nowhere. Again. And ZZ Top have to give them directions. Again. So we finally make our way to the tiny home of Little Miss Muffet.
Can anyone fit in there?
That's why they call her Little Miss Muffet.
I'm pretty sure that she's called Little Miss Muffet because she's supposed to be a little girl, but... whatever, books belong to their readers. But wait, the tiny home of Little Miss Muffet is too small for our heroes. How will they get inside?
You just have to think to shrink.
Ah. So, through the power of rhyming words, which, yeah, I guess makes sense in a place called Rhineland, Peep and Gordon are able to shrink themselves and get inside Miss Muffet's home, now wearing comically oversized clothes, which gives the opportunity for this joke.
At least you're not too big for your britches anymore.
Why do I get the feeling that the only reason they made Little Miss Muffet a tiny person is so that they could make that joke? So Miss Muffet, played by Pia Zadora, ever the gracious host, offers them some of her curds and whey.
I just heated up some instant in the microwave.
Good. Fix for the roof of your mouth.
Okay, I have questions. First, why are we making curds and whey in the microwave? Second, why are the curds and whey a sickly green? Third, are curds and whey supposed to stick to the roof of your mouth? I mean, granted, I don't know a whole lot about curds and whey, but all of this just seems really wrong. Anyway, after some rather uncomfortable flirting and the obligatory whey pun...
Sure there's not too much whey?
Oh, no, actually, there's way too much whey.
They get down to business and ask her about Itsy Bitsy Spider.
We need to know, have you seen Itsy Bitsy Spider?
Spider? Where's the spider? Oh, I can't stand spiders. Please get him.
I happen to find spiders most distasteful. And for some reason, they know it. They seem to enjoy taunting me, torturing me.
And here's another example of how much it would suck to be a Rhymey in Rhineland. You got little Miss Muffet, who is specifically created not only to be afraid of spiders, but to constantly have spiders appearing next to her. That seems like it would really suck, and yet Miss Muffet seems blissfully unconcerned about it. That is until...
Spider!
Miss Levine!
So yeah, I think I'm starting to see why little Miss Muffet is so afraid of spiders. I mean, seriously, that was a supervillain entrance right there. I'm starting to think that Ben Vereen's the real bad guy in this movie. I mean, he has betrayed the Son of God before.
Cut out the dramatics, you know very well who...
Cheetah's playing hard to get.
Okay, I have more questions. Why is there a random flashing dance floor in Miss Muffet's home? Who is that shadowy figure in the doorway? Is that supposed to be Miss Muffet? I thought she was afraid of the spider. Now she's dancing with the spider? And perhaps most importantly, what is Itsy doing? Is this part of scaring Miss Muffet? Because I'm fairly sure that if a spider started dancing like that, I'd be pretty scared too.
How did you disappear when we were talking at that water spout?
Hey, man, I'm a free spirit. I gotta go where the wind blows.
Or put another way, we needed to find a way to stretch this movie out to a full hour and a half. But now Itsy finally gets a chance to finish his sentence about what happened to Mother Goose.
Your mama was abducted, I'm telling you. These U-turns came down from the sky, grabbed Mama Goose, and took her up into space.
Wait a minute. Maybe what we think is outer space is actually the real world.
Ooh.
And maybe, just maybe, some inexplicable phenomenon from the real world somehow intruded into Rhineland and took Mother Goose.
Ooh.
Okay, now this is interesting. Apparently, the Rhymies in Rhineland are aware of the real world, meaning that they are aware that they are fictional. That would explain why this whole world looks like a third grader's diorama, or why they're all compelled to do what their rhymes tell them to do. This idea of fictional characters being aware of their fictionality and finding some way to interact with the real world and their readers or their creators is also an idea that had a lot of influence on me as a kid. And as an adult. Hi. I'm fictional. Anyway, back to the story.
When you start thinking this heavy, you gotta go see the king.
So now it's off to see Old King Cole, and thankfully this time they actually go directly there and don't take a 20-minute long detour. Nice to see her actually engaging in some plot for a change. So they walk into the sounds of 80s hip-hop. Gordon plays the part of every white guy trying to act street, and the king is given just the absolute lamest of introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, animals and creatures, do you know what time it is? It's time to...
He sounds like a vice principal introducing a popular singing group he knows nothing about to a bunch of high schoolers. Oh, and watch this awesome joke set up. It's like, oh wow, that trumpet's gonna blow right in his ear and it's gonna be super loud and hilarious.
Old King Cole!
Oh, come on, sound guy, get it together! Then Old King Cole himself comes out, and it's Little Richard. Of course. Out comes Little Richard, dressed as Little Richard, and he begins to play some 50s style rock and roll. And say what you will about the strangeness of this movie, but this is actually a pretty good song.
Party with the king.
decides rather than wait for the king to, finish the song, it might be better to go interrupt him in front of everyone. I mean, to be fair, a 12-bar blues song like that could go on for days, but come on, you don't interrupt a piano player when he's rocking out.
Your Majesty, we're very sorry to interrupt your merrymaking, but we have something very...
What in Mother Goose's name is Gordon doing in the background? Did Dan Gilroy just really have to pee at that point?
You insult me by requesting that I, O King Cole, the merriest of souls, discuss something of importance?
So by virtue of him not being merry enough, I guess, Gordon is sent to the king's fungeon.
Fungeon? Fun dungeon. It's a play on words. It's a fun... Never mind!
Where he's chained to a wall and forced to endure... an 80s metal music video. Because, honestly, what better way to show Gordon merriment? So, honestly, the song itself is pretty decent, though the effect is kind of ruined when they keep cutting to Dan Gilroy making what I assume are supposed to be scared faces, though they look so much like every other face he makes in this movie that it's kind of hard to tell. But the scene just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, okay, the song is about Gordon and how he's too uptight and needs to calm the fuck down, and yeah, that's all well and good, but why metal? It's so at odds both with the rest of the dungeon scene and what's supposed to be happening here that it just kind of seems out of place. Also, listen to some of these lyrics.
We know you're in there, you might be hiding, but we won't go away. You've been a bad boy, a very bad boy. We'll have to punish you.
I guess the scene on its own just wasn't creepy enough for the children. And this also once again begs the question, what nursery rhyme are these guys supposed to be?
You know how sometimes you're just not happy enough for the king and he locks you in his dungeon to cheer you up. And this 80s hair band comes and plays music for you about your existential crisis. That's what this rhyme's about. Sounds fun. Frizzy hair and skull-like masks. Why dress this way, you might ask? Rocking out and sounding mean in this foggy dungeon scene will make you scream or bring you cheer. Job description's not quite clear. And then perform our hardest task and pull that stick right from your ass.
So anyway, the song finally ends and... oh good, it can't possibly get any worse than... oh, this is so much worse! Oh, sweet Mother Goose, this is so much worse! Oh!
Scary time's over. Now it's happy time!
No, I'm fairly sure it's still scary time. So yeah, as you might have guessed, these two are the perfect mix of a little creepy, a lot annoying, and not at all funny. Let's go back to Peepin' the King to help us actually move the plot forward.
Mother Goose created us all. And if she ever left one, we would all disappear. But since nobody's disappearing, there is nothing to worry about. You're right. Mother Goose is no longer in Rhineland. You've got to find her before we all disappear. And as king, I will do everything in my power to help.
You mean you'll come with us?
Don't push it, Pete.
But why?
Because that would really bum me out.
Here again we see another character who must behave as he's written. Old King Cole is a merry old soul, and he can't be anything else but merry, so he can't do anything that would, as he put it, bum him out. But he does agree to release Gordon and sends him to Egghead Humpty Dumpty. So now it's back to the dungeon and...
Still hanging around?
Okay, I have the same questions here as I did for the Hop To It gang and the metal band. What nursery rhyme is this supposed to be? I mean, at least with those guys, you can just say that they were a part of the whole musical experience, that they don't really exist in the real world as characters. But these are actual characters in the story. So, is there a nursery rhyme for two obnoxious clowns?
This is a rhyme about two truly obnoxious clowns. Yellow hair and feathers. high-pitched laugh and voice. These two creepy assholes will not give you much choice. They're not the least bit funny, but you're chained to the walls. Still, maybe, if you get the chance, please kick them in the balls.
So Gordon is released, both from the dungeon and the uninspired comedy routine, and he's supposedly happier now? Though his laughing face looks an awful lot like his scared face, and his irritated face, and the guy only has one expression. Vaguely spazzed. So next they're off to see Humpty Dumpty, played by Howie Mandel, whose job, it seems, is to sit on this comically large wall and make horrible egg puns.
Shall I begin? I'm just yoking, get it? Yoking. Boy, sometimes I really crap me up. There's another one. My emotions are what's the word? Scrambled. But seriously, folks, let's get hard-boiled about this. I'm sorry.
How many more of these egg puns do I have to listen to?
Oh, don't worry, just another dozen.
Okay, so for those of you who are wondering, yes, I do find the egg puns funny. Though to be fair, I would find just about anything funny after those obnoxious dungeon clowns. However, before Humpty can actually give them any answers, he does his great fall bit and turns into a horrible blue screen effect. So Peep and Gordon just sort of watch Humpty Dumpty fall to his death. That's cold.
Has he expired?
Nah, besides, it's about time he came out of his shell.
Dude, don't try to compete with Humpty's puns, you're out of your league. So Humpty can't help them, surprise, surprise, and the two of them finally decide to go to the police, only to find that the police have disappeared.
Never find a cop when you need one.
So they get called over by a shady character who, actually, I don't know who he's supposed to be. I mean, they give him a lot of detail for him just being another random character, but I don't think I've ever heard of this nursery rhyme. Someone named Stanley who likes jelly beans, I don't know.
Looking for a little fun, a little excitement, huh? Actually, I'm looking for my mother. Yeah, aren't we all? Well, maybe she's inside.
Mother Goose is in here?
No, she's not in there because we've already established that she's no longer in Rhineland. No, what are you doing? If she was in that bar, then the Rhymies wouldn't be disappearing. We've established this. You're just wasting time!
What a couple of saps.
Okay, so I guess we're going into this bar now. This is Georgie Porgy's, and what the fuck is up with the clientele here? Seriously, what nursery rhymes are these? I have no knowledge of a nursery rhyme that describes people who are just creepy beyond all reason.
Singing cats and creepy masks are not what I call fun. The drugs have finally kicked in, and you know what? I'm fucking done.
By the way, we do have another musical moment here with the singing cats.
Jellicle cats, jellicle.
No. In general, the songs in this movie are pretty good, and I think I've even maybe figured out why the whole thing has a rock and roll motif. I think they might be trying to make a connection between nursery rhymes and the rhymes of rock and roll, as if to say that rock and roll songs are like modern-day nursery rhymes. Or maybe I'm just giving the movie way too much credit, I don't know. Anyway, after some incredibly awkward conversation with Georgie Porgy himself, played by Art Garfunkel, Gordon is referred to the detective agency upstairs. Last I checked, Jessica Rabbit was not a nursery rhyme. What, did Bob Zemeckis pay for advertising space in this movie?
No, not doing it. No, I don't care about my contract. I'm not doing it. No. All right, don't stop pushing. See the sexy lady in theaters soon. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, 22nd June. Okay, there, I did it. All right, get me out of here. On my way.
Anyway, Gordon walks into the detective agency, which is run by the three blind mice, all of whom are played by Bobby Brown. And maybe it's just because I like film noir parodies, but this is a fun sequence for me.
It was a hot and sultry afternoon. You know, like August, July, maybe June. There's nothing to do but cut the cheese and talk about past case history.
I mean, where else are you going to get film noir narration in rhyming couplets? Also, I like this joke.
What happened to the color? Why are we suddenly in black and white?
We're colorblind.
Yeah, but I'm not.
It's not your office.
Ultimately, however, the scene is as pointless as, well, most of the scenes in this movie, honestly, and it ends with another dance break. This time, a remixed version of Three Blind Mice, which is actually kind of cool. Anyway, Gordon has another spaz attack and leaves, so next up on our list of nursery rhymes to randomly encounter is Simple Simon, played by Paul Simon, of course. They pick him up and we get to have what is probably my favorite joke in the entire movie.
On the road again. I can't remember why I'm on the road again.
So Simple Simon is, as his rhyme states, simple, which in this case just means, well, plain stupid.
Gordon, don't make fun. He's simple.
What?
What?
I thought I heard somebody call my name. Wasn't somebody asking where Mother Goose was?
It was us.
Thanks for the,
Ride?
No, thanks. I can walk.
I didn't hear anything simple.
There it is again.
I don't think simple even begins to describe old Simon.
But when Simple Simon disappears right before their eyes, they finally realize that they're absolutely nowhere. Things are so bad that Gordon unbuttons his top button. Now we know things are serious.
So far, the whole thing has been a total fiasco. We're not one step closer to finding my mother than we were when we first started.
Pretty much a perfect summation of the entire movie. So Pete blames herself, and Gordon tries to tell her how helpful she's been, and before we know it, we've got our obligatory moment where they finally realize how much they like each other. Gosh, totally didn't see that coming. But the almighty Mother Goose is finally fed up with this incompetent shit and decides to give the plot the push it needs.
Gordon, I'm in the real world! You've got to save me!
Good idea, oh Lord. Of course it's a good idea.
But how are they going to get to outer space, you ask? Okay, this is good. This is what the movie should have been doing. Finding clever ways to use the nursery rhymes instead of just randomly showing them to us. Yay for plans! And of course the carnival gives us yet another opportunity for 80s style trippiness. The carnival features such acts as Little Jack Horner and Jack Be Nimble, which unlike the other nursery rhymes are shown briefly and not with entire wasted scenes. At the center of all this trippiness is Cheech of Cheech and Chong, which seems appropriate somehow, playing the cat in Hey Diddle Diddle as a carnival barker, pitching the cow that jumps over the moon.
Got your cow going, pasteurized milk.
You know, this is a pretty old clip, but I think that joke calls for another shot of Felix Churchgoer banging his head against a wall. Felix? Thanks, Felix. And now, back to the movie. So, Gordon and Peep ride their cow over the moon and into outer space. Because at this point, why not?
This is great!
It's breathtaking!
That's because there's no air up here.
Felix? Thank you.
It's time to boldly go where no cow has gone before.
Moo, 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 moo. Moo, 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 moo. So they fly the cow clear out of the book and into the real world where they find Mother Goose and her captor.
Now you can act out your stories for me instead of Mother Goose just telling them to me.
Anyway, Gordon and Peep explain to this kid the damage he's done, though why Mother Goose couldn't have done that herself all along is beyond me, but whatever, maybe she wanted her son to feel special or needed or whatever. After all, he is our Lord and Savior. So Michael puts them all back in the story and everything goes back to normal.
Normal? There's nothing normal about them.
Son, there's nothing wrong with being different.
Well, maybe, but I'm not one of them.
So, yeah. After all that, Gordon has learned basically nothing. He's still a prejudiced little asshole who thinks he's better than everyone around him. I'm so glad we went on this journey together, aren't you? But Mother Goose has one more little surprise for Gordon.
I knew it. I'm adopted, right?
No, you are fictional. I made you up. I created you.
You mean I'm a rhymey?
You are the first rhymey.
So yes, Gordon is a rhymey too, and this realization suddenly makes all his prejudice evaporate. Isn't that nice, just like the real world?
Maybe we could, look for those sheep?
Together, I'm sure we could find them.
So Gordon and Peep head out into Rhymeland and its crazy trippiness once again. You know, I honestly can't tell if he looks more awkward when he's reluctantly participating in the dance or when he's willingly participating in the dance. So that's Mother Goose Rock and Rhyme, and watching this again, it's pretty easy to see where a lot of my early storytelling influence came from. The idea of having all these story characters living in one place, the idea of their rhymes becoming literal rules to live by no matter what, the idea of the characters being aware of their own fictionality, these are all things that I've put into stories I've written in one way or another. It doesn't hurt that at the same time I was watching this, I was also watching Into the Woods over and over, which does a lot of the same kinds of things. That being said though, is the movie actually good? Well, I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning of the review. This is the uncut version, which was released in 1988 on VHS. It was then re-edited and released on TV a couple years later. That's the version I watched, and it's a lot better. They cut out some of the more worthless and uninteresting scenes, rearranged some things, and perhaps most importantly, changed the background music, making it more appropriate to the scenes it was backing. And it really makes a huge difference. Even with those edits though, the movie definitely has some issues. Parts of it are very cleverly written, well acted, and even funny, and other parts of it are just not. The plot still meanders needlessly, Gordon is still an irritating little spaz, the message of being yourself and how it's okay to be different is kind of overshadowed by the main character not learning anything, and there are still moments where it can't quite decide whether it's supposed to be for kids or adults. I feel like this could have made a really good sci-fi miniseries where all these nursery rhyme characters live this really dark existence, living out their nursery rhymes as literally as possible. I just never felt like it was really meant for kids. But despite the tonal confusion, it's a pretty fun watch. There's just something enjoyable about seeing such raw creativity, even if it is batshit crazy sometimes. It's a fun little slice of the 80s, and on the worth meter, I would give it a worth borrowing. But only if you watch the shorter version. And there. I did another bargain bin review. You happy? Days? E.T.? Huh. That's weird. Moo 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 moo. Sorry, Shadow. I startled the dog with that one.